The Sigma INFJ personality is one of the hardest to truly understand. It's not just because this type is rare. It's because their inner world is filled with contradictions, private thoughts, and emotional layers that most people never get to see. On the outside, they might seem calm, kind, and maybe a little distant. But inside, there's a constant stream of thinking, feeling, and analyzing that never really stops. To understand a Sigma INFJ, you first need to understand what this mix of traits means. INFJs are known for being deeply intuitive, empathetic, and private. They often feel emotions strongly and care deeply about people and ideas. They're also planners who prefer structure, even if they don't show it. Now add the Sigma mindset into the mix. A Sigma doesn't care about fitting into a group or following social norms. They operate outside of the social hierarchy. They think for themselves, live by their own rules, and avoid unnecessary attention. So now you have someone who is deeply emotional and private, yet fiercely independent and hard to influence. That's what makes the Sigma INFJ feel like a mystery to others. They connect deeply with people, but still keep most of themselves hidden. They want meaningful relationships, but also need a lot of space. They help others emotionally, but often carry their own struggles in silence. People try to label them introvert, empath, loner, deep thinker, but none of those labels capture the full picture. Sigma INFJs don't just act differently. They think and feel differently. Their thoughts are layered, their emotions are intense, and their social needs are unique. In this video, we'll explore 6 specific reasons why the psyche of a Sigma INFJ is so difficult to understand. These reasons will help you see the emotional patterns, the private logic, and the quiet complexity that make them feel so hard to figure out. Let's get started. Reason number 1, maintain strict emotional and mental boundaries. One of the most defining traits of a Sigma INFJ is how carefully they guard their inner world. While they may be friendly, calm, or even warm on the outside, they are often very careful about what they share emotionally. They have a strong need to protect their thoughts and feelings, and they don't trust easily. This doesn't mean they are cold or distant. In fact, most Sigma INFJs care deeply about others. But caring doesn't equal openness. They can feel everything in a room, notice when someone is hurting, and give advice that feels incredibly personal. Yet when someone asks how they're doing, they often brush it off or keep it vague. This type of emotional boundary is not a wall, it's more like a filter. They only let people see what they choose to reveal. And even in close relationships, there will always be a part of them that stays private. They don't do this to be secretive. They do it because their emotions and ideas are deeply personal, and they've learned that not everyone will understand or respect that. These boundaries also protect them from emotional burnout. Because they absorb so much of what's going on around them, they need space to clear their mind and reset their energy. Being too open with too many people drains them quickly. That's why they often keep their circle small, avoid emotional drama, and choose silence over unnecessary conflict. Even when they are hurt, frustrated, or emotionally overwhelmed, they may choose to keep it inside. They might write about it, think through it alone, or express it in creative ways. But they won't always talk about it, especially if they think it won't be received with care. This makes them hard to get close to. A friend or partner might feel like they're being kept at a distance, even when the Sigma INFJ deeply cares. But for the Sigma INFJ, maintaining this space is not a lack of love. It's how they preserve emotional balance and keep from feeling trapped or exposed. Understanding this boundary is key. Pushing too hard will only make them pull back more. But if you respect their pace and give them space to open up in their own time, they're more likely to let you into the deeper parts of their mind and heart. Reason number 2, combines deep empathy with fierce independence. Sigma INFJs are often seen as empaths. They sense other people's emotions without being told. They know when someone is hiding pain. They feel tension in a room that others ignore. This level of emotional awareness is a core part of who they are. But at the same time, they have a strong drive to stay independent, which can confuse the people around them. They care, but they don't cling. They want emotional closeness, but they also need to be alone for long periods. They can support someone through a hard time, but then disappear for a few days to recharge. These shifts in closeness and space can be hard to predict, and they often leave people wondering where they stand. What makes it even harder to understand is that the Sigma INFJ often doesn't explain these shifts. They don't always say, "I need space," or "I'm overwhelmed." Instead, they just take the space they need. Not to punish or hurt anyone, but to stay balanced within themselves. This pattern is rooted in their personality. Their empathy drives them to connect deeply. But too much closeness, especially without space to breathe, starts to feel draining. They fear losing their independence or getting pulled into emotional situations that feel out of control. So even if they care deeply about someone, they may pull back to protect that inner sense of freedom. This creates a dynamic that feels both intimate and distant. They might listen to someone's feelings for hours, give powerful insights, and make the person feel completely understood. Then, the next day, they might go silent or disappear into their own thoughts. It's not about being hot and cold, it's about balancing two powerful inner needs that constantly compete with each other. In relationships, this can be difficult. People often expect consistency in emotional closeness. But for the Sigma INFJ, emotional energy comes and goes in waves. When they're present, they're fully engaged. When they retreat, they're not angry or disconnected, they're just restoring their emotional reserves. If someone tries to hold on too tightly or demand constant emotional attention, the Sigma INFJ will back away. Not because they don't care, but because they start to feel trapped. Their independence isn't optional, it's how they survive. Without it, their empathy begins to turn into stress or emotional exhaustion. The best way to support a Sigma INFJ is to recognize this pattern and not take it personally. When they know they can have both connection and space, they become more open, more consistent, and more emotionally steady over time. Reason number 3. Constantly reads between the lines. Sigma INFJs rarely take anything at face value. They're always looking for what's beneath the surface, what someone really means, what they're not saying, and why they might be saying something in a certain way. This habit of reading between the lines makes them feel intense, mysterious, and sometimes even intimidating. When someone speaks, a Sigma INFJ hears more than just the words. They pick up on tone, body language, timing, and context. They sense hesitation, insecurity, or dishonesty, even when the conversation seems casual. It's not that they're trying to overanalyze, it's just how their brain is wired. They notice patterns, emotional shifts, and inconsistencies without effort. This makes everyday social interactions more layered for them. While others might enjoy light talk or simple conversation, a Sigma INFJ is often trying to figure out what's really going on beneath the surface. This can lead to emotional insight, but it can also create stress. They can become overwhelmed by too much emotional noise, especially in large or shallow social environments. Because they pick up on so much, they tend to be cautious about who they trust. If someone says one thing but behaves differently, the Sigma INFJ notices. If a person's words don't match their energy, they pick up on the conflict. Over time, this makes them more reserved and careful. They have learned that people don't always say what they feel, and that not everyone wants to be seen too clearly. In relationships, this can be both a gift and a challenge. On one hand, the Sigma INFJ can understand a partner on a very deep level. They might be able to tell when something's wrong without being told. They can offer support that feels personal and comforting. But on the other hand, they might misread a situation or get caught in loops of overthinking. Because they're always reading into things, they sometimes assume there's a deeper problem when there isn't. They might worry about how something was said, wonder if someone is upset, or replay a conversation in their mind long after it's over. This kind of mental activity can be draining, both for the Sigma INFJ and for the people close to them. To others, this emotional intensity can feel like pressure. A friend or partner might feel like they're always being analyzed or tested, even when that's not the Sigma INFJ's goal. It's just that they don't know how to shut off their inner awareness. It's always on, always scanning, always interpreting. This deep perception makes them highly intuitive and emotionally wise, but it also makes them harder to connect with casually. They crave honesty, die depth, and emotional alignment. Anything less feels fake or uncomfortable. And that's why many people find them hard to understand. They're not interested in surface-level anything. Reason number 4. Alternates between emotional intensity and detachment. A Sigma INFJ often moves between two very different emotional states. At times, they're all in, fully present, emotionally available, and deeply connected to the people they care about. They'll give their time, their thoughts, and their emotional energy without holding back. But then, just as quickly, they may pull away. This detachment is not about losing interest or shutting down. It's about balance. When they give too much emotionally, they need time to reset. Their emotions run deep, and their empathy picks up on everything around them. After a period of emotional involvement, they often feel the need to step back and recharge in solitude. This back-and-forth rhythm is not something they plan, it just happens naturally. The world around them often doesn't see this coming. One moment, the Sigma INFJ is sending long, thoughtful messages or showing strong emotional support. The next, they've gone silent, disappeared from social life, or seem emotionally flat. To the people around them, this can feel confusing or even hurtful. A friend or partner might think something is wrong. But most of the time, nothing happened. The Sigma INFJ just reached a point where they needed distance to recover from emotional overload. During these times, they may stop answering messages, avoid social gatherings, or lose interest in conversations. They may seem distant or distracted. But inside, they're not pushing people away. They're trying to reconnect with their own thoughts and emotions. This cycle also helps them protect their independence. Emotional intensity can feel like pressure, even if it's positive. They don't want to lose their sense of self, and when emotional connection becomes too much, they instinctively retreat. That space allows them to feel grounded again. The problem is, they don't always explain this. They might assume others understand their need for space, or they might feel guilty about asking for it. So they just go quiet instead. But silence often gets misunderstood, especially in close relationships. To understand this pattern, it helps to look at how the Sigma INFJ uses emotional energy. They give a lot when they feel aligned, but their energy isn't endless. Once it runs low, they need solitude, reflection, and stillness. If they don't get that space, they start to feel emotionally shut down. They are not trying to confuse or test anyone. They are managing emotional survival. And once they have had enough time to reset, they usually return more balanced, thoughtful, and open. Learning to respect that rhythm is one of the most important parts of truly understanding a Sigma INFJ. Reason number 5 holds unshakable personal values. Sigma INFJs live by a strong set of personal values, and those values guide everything they do. They are not easily influenced by trends, peer pressure, or social rewards. They decide what's right based on their inner belief system, and once they've made a decision, it's hard to change their mind. They don't follow the crowd. They don't seek approval. And they're not interested in doing things just to be accepted. This makes them feel different from others, sometimes in a lonely way, but also in a way that feels right to them. This inner compass is what gives them their sense of direction. It tells them who to trust, what to pursue, and how to live. They don't need a lot of external rules, because they've already created their own system of values. These values are often focused on honesty, depth, fairness, and authenticity. Because they're so committed to their beliefs, they often struggle in environments that feel shallow, manipulative, or emotionally fake. They can't pretend to enjoy things they don't care about. They won't stay in relationships that feel dishonest. They won't tolerate people who act one way in public and another in private. This strong sense of right and wrong makes them dependable, but also very hard to convince or redirect. If someone pushes them to compromise their values, the answer will always be no. Not with anger or drama, but with quiet, firm detachment. In social situations, this can create tension. They might refuse to play along with group behavior that feels fake. They might challenge authority figures or question social norms. They don't do this to rebel. They do it because they believe in a better way. And they're not afraid to stand alone if they have to. In relationships, this can also create friction. A partner might feel like the Sigma INFJ is too intense, too rigid, or too idealistic. But for the Sigma INFJ, these values are not optional. They are essential. Without them, life starts to feel meaningless or unstable. They also expect others to live with integrity. They don't expect perfection, but they do expect honesty. If someone lies, plays games, or acts selfishly, the Sigma INFJ usually won't argue or explain. They'll just quietly remove themselves from the situation. To truly understand this type, you have to accept that their values are not up for debate. You don't have to agree with them, but you do have to respect them. Because when a Sigma INFJ lives in alignment with their core beliefs, they become steady, focused, and deeply trustworthy. But when those beliefs are constantly challenged, they become withdrawn, quiet, and emotionally guarded. Reason number 6. Processes everything internally. One of the most confusing traits of a Sigma INFJ is how much they keep inside. While some people think out loud or process emotions by talking things through, Sigma INFJs do the opposite. They think, reflect further and analyze privately. Most of their emotional and mental activity happens when no one can see it. This internal processing makes them feel distant, even when they're physically present. You might sit with them for an hour without knowing what they're thinking. You might ask how they're feeling and get a short, unclear answer. Not because they're hiding anything, but because they're still working it out inside. They don't speak unless they've thought it through. They don't share unless it feels completely honest. And they don't explain themselves unless they believe it will actually help. That makes them appear mysterious, hard to read, or emotionally unavailable, even to the people closest to them. This habit starts early. Many Sigma INFJs grow up feeling misunderstood. They learn to sort through emotions alone because they don't always have people around them who understand how they think. Over time, they become skilled at handling their emotions in silence. It becomes second nature to reflect privately rather than express things out loud. Because of this, they rarely ask for help. They don't like drawing attention to themselves or sharing something unless they've already figured out what it means. They may carry pain, doubt, or emotional confusion for weeks without ever showing it. Not because they want to suffer in silence, but because that's how they're wired to process life. This internal world is rich, detailed, and often far ahead of what they express outwardly. When they do choose to speak, they've already thought through several angles. That's why their insights often feel deep and precise. They're the result of long, quiet thought. But the downside is that people around them don't always know what's going on. A friend or partner may sense something is off, but get no clear answer. That creates distance, even when the Sigma INFJ doesn't mean to create it. They assume their silence is neutral, but others may feel it as cold or confusing. This gap between inner processing and outer expression is one of the main reasons Sigma INFJs are so hard to connect with emotionally. It's not that they lack feeling. It's that their feelings are so internalized, others rarely get to see them. If they feel safe and supported, they may share more over time. But if they feel rushed, judged, or pushed to explain things before they're ready, they'll shut down even more. Understanding this pattern is essential to building trust with them. They need space to think, time to reflect, and the freedom to come forward when it feels right. When those conditions are met, they can become deeply open, honest, and emotionally expressive. But it has to be on their terms, not on someone else's timeline. The psyche of a Sigma INFJ is not built for easy access. It's built for depth, independence, and emotional truth. From the outside, this personality can seem distant, inconsistent, or hard to understand. But underneath that quiet surface is someone who thinks deeply, feels deeply, and lives by a strong inner compass. They protect themselves because they've learned how rare real understanding is. They move in and out of emotional connection because they're trying to stay balanced. They may not say much, but they see everything. And even when they seem withdrawn, they're still paying attention to what matters. If you know a Sigma INFJ, the best thing you can offer is patience. Let them open up in their own way. Respect their space. Don't try to fix them or figure them out too quickly. What looks like distance is often just depth. And if you are a Sigma INFJ, know that it's okay to move at your own pace. Your way of thinking, feeling, and living might be different, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. You don't need to be fully understood by everyone. The right people will appreciate you for exactly who you are. If this video helped you understand yourself or someone else better, feel free to share your experience in the comments.